Hey everyone, and welcome to Pro Tour Talk with Steve Dodge. I'm Steve Dodge, and this is Pro Tour Talk. Today is May 30th, 2018. So today, realistically, we've got to start with the women. What an amazing battle we had at the San Francisco Open. For the first time ever, as far as I know, every female player had a camera on them at some point, probably for, if they played 54 holes, probably for 40 plus holes each. We got some amazing footage. Daniela's going through that, putting together some clips, and we're going to have some very exciting stuff showing women, lots of women succeeding at disc golf going forward. Great stuff. We also, for the first time ever, had same day shot by shot edited coverage with commentary put out right before the men went live. It was an amazing exercise to make it happen, and very well. Basically, the women filled that first hour, and then Dixon Jowers' Circle Zero show filled the next 15 minutes until the men went off. And then we had the men go off, and the men's round took anywhere from probably just under 3 hours. So the entire show with the men, the Circle Zero show, and the women was around 4 hours, 10 minutes, a really efficient use of time. All in all, a fantastic effort. So thank you. Thing that I would say on the women's side brings me to a story. So I'm going to tell you all a story. My family, in addition to loving ice cream, we love playing cards. And we go to Maine every year. And for a couple of weeks, if we can all get up there. And when I was a kid, we were all up there because mom and dad brought us there. We would go to Maine and we would play outside and read books. And then at night, we'd go inside and we'd play cards. And one year I decided I'm never going to lose a card game at all for the entire 2 weeks. And I told everybody, I said, this year is going to be known as the Reign of Terror. And everybody is going to just lose and lose and lose to me, because I am not going to lose a single card game all year. And lo and behold, with that great confidence that I had, I spent the first 3 days winning and winning and winning. And I don't know if anybody was really worried about my reign of terror actually coming true, but I was on cloud 14. I was way up there. Everything was going my way. And then on day 4, I don't know the game. I don't know who beat me, but I was beaten. And from that point on, I'm not sure if I won another card game the rest of the vacation. Once people knew it was possible to defeat me, I couldn't manage anything. So what does that have to do with disc golf? Well, if you watch the San Francisco Open, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sarah Hokom put the hammer down, averaging close to 980 rated golf. Amazing. 3 amazing rounds by Sarah Hokom. She beat her competitors. I'm going to try to look it up real quick. I don't even know the number. Let's see if I can find the number. How do you look this? How does this UDisc thing work anyway? Sarah Hokom won by 8 strokes, giving up 2 strokes to Katrina in the final round. So she had everybody by 10 or so, gave up a couple of strokes, maybe playing a little safe, and ended up winning by 8 strokes in the San Francisco Open. A dominant showing. Up until this point, nobody thought Paige Pierce was touchable. And then Sarah Hokom comes out to a ball golf course, of all places, where distance and power matter. And she goes out and has the tournament of her season so far. All of a sudden, and we're going to talk with Matt Kruger later today, but all of a sudden, Tour Points, the race for first on the women's side is legit. Sarah gets another win or two, and Paige, I know Paige is already planning on missing a couple of events. If she misses a third event, Tour Points really become interesting, presuming Sarah makes all the events. So we'll get into that a little more with Matt Kruger. But I think we can officially say we're in day 4 of vacation, and Paige Pierce's reign of terror is over. And Sarah Hokom has shown, hey, I can play, and maybe it's my reign of terror. Maybe it's my time. And not only that, but Katrina Allen showed up, had a fantastic 3 rounds, actually tied Paige Pierce for second, had a putt to take second all by herself, and ended up laying it up. Didn't want to risk losing second. Potentially a smart move, depending how she was feeling about that putt. And Jessica Weiss, who I think on day 1 4-putted the final hole, finished 1 stroke behind the two of them to finish in 4th place. So all in all, a fantastic showing by the women. It was great to watch, and huge congratulations to Sarah Hokom. A lot of people very excited to watch Sarah, especially after Waco. Everybody's heart went out. And she is a competitor through and through, and she's someone who wears her emotions on her sleeve, and that's the kind of thing that everybody just loves. So, huge shout out to Sarah Hokom. Well done, and it'll be interesting. And doesn't win again the rest of the season, or in my case, the rest of vacation, or if she bounces back, redoubles her efforts, and shows us why, in fact, she is the best in the world. So time will tell. They're headed up to the Beaver State Fling, and then the next Pro Tour event is the Utah Open. So stay tuned for that. More on that in the coming weeks. Let's talk real quick about the San Francisco. I think Waco does a very impressive job. Idlewild does a very impressive job. The MVP Open, Ledgestone do very impressive jobs. Utah even has a lot of staff. San Francisco might have put us all to shame. That staff was incredible. They might have had 18 spotters out there. A spotter might have had more. There was at least 1 spotter per hole, it seemed. So amazing staff. Each night there was great things going on. The first night there was a $20,000 hole-in-one contest. The second night they had drone racing. Oh my gosh! And the drone racing towards the end, the guys were throwing golf discs and they were throwing the drones. The drones were actually racing, doing loops around the golf discs as they were flying. That's some footage I would love to get a hold of. It. If anybody has that footage in San Francisco, please, please, please put it in a Dropbox and send it to me. I want that footage, and we need to include it in some highlight film of San Francisco. So nonstop fun, fantastic food, very well-run event, a great payout on a ball golf course in San Francisco overlooking the bay. Really can't ask for much more. Those guys did a fantastic job. And Sarah Hokom, and haven't even talked about the men yet, but Sarah Hokom and Paul McBeth walk away the champions of the inaugural San Francisco Open. So hats off, a tip of the tuft to the entire San Francisco crew. You guys rock, and we can't wait to see you all again next year. And we'll talk more about the men's side later on. And then in just a second, I'm going to bring Matt Kruger from UDisc. We're going to talk about tour points, why all that stuff matters, and how we go into all that. But real quick, I want to run through some statistics, and let's talk real quick about we'll do the women first, and then we'll talk with Matt, and then afterwards, if we have time, we'll do the men and talk about how Paul managed to beat Ricky, Simon, Eagle, and Drew Gibson, who were finished out the top 5. So on the women's side, though, Sarah Hokom, the way that Sarah Hokom won was realistically, it was circle 1 in regulation and her OB strokes. Circle 1 putting was very close among all of the women. And so it was just a matter of getting into circle 1. And that's where Sarah Hokom really put the pedal to the metal. Over 52% of the time she was in circle 1 in regulation. That's going to give her a lot of birdie looks. The other competitors, Katrina, Paige, Jessica, they were in the mid-30s. So with an advantage like that, and then additionally, Sarah Hokom going goes, yeah, 1 every 12 drives, so 1.5 OB strokes per round on that course where there's 18 holes with OB. Phenomenal control. And that's how you win a tournament, by 8 strokes on the women's side. Great showing by Paige Pierce. I'm sorry, great showing by Sarah Hokom. And with that, let's see if I have one more stat page pulled up. Oh, so Paige Pierce's OB rate, although her circle 1 in regulation was 44%, which is a pretty good showing. And then Jessica Weiss, her circle 1 in regulation was 1/3 as opposed to Sarah's 1/2, but her OB rate was better. So a little more controlled, but not quite as many birdie opportunities. All of that makes sense. Sarah Hokom was able to put both of those together and succeed in spades. So with that, let's see if Matt Kruger is here. Hello, Matt. Can you say hello?
Hello, I am here.
Let me see if let me turn this button up. How's that?
Hello, hello, hello.
That is much better. Turns out that I should not mute you on my end in addition to you.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I guess I'm not an expert, but.
We are not audio experts, but we do know that volume up has a result. Matt, great to see you again.
You too. Sorry, the lighting's not great. You got me like right at dusk. So we're going to do the best we can here.
Just like me, you look phenomenal. So,
awesome.
Now, Matt, the primary thing that I wanted to talk with you about is tour points. And I'm going to pull these up in another window while we chat. Where are those tour points? Here we go. So when I pull up, for example, the women's tour points, it says Paige Pierce has 380, Sarah Hokom has 314, and then Katrina Allen 270, Jessica Weiss 261. With those tour points, however, they get a couple of drops during the season. Is that correct?
Yep, 2 drops this year.
Two
so
drops.
That means that, yeah, your 2 worst showings, or if you don't play 2 events or something like that, you drop those 2.
Okay. So, for example, Madison Walker, who didn't show up to Waco, she has a 7th, a 2nd, and a 6th. That her rating right now with that event is included in her stats right now. Is that true?
I mean, essentially, yeah. Yep.
So, we haven't discussed this yet, but I think we should. When do we want to calculate in those 2 drops? Seems like
well, it seemed like after 7 events are played, right?
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. Or...
You could do it maybe after halfway through, get rid of 1, and then after 7 or 8, get rid of another. I don't know the best way to do it.
I mean, in the end, it's going to come out the same, right?
It is. There's wait. Oh, okay. Now, I don't want to put programming on your plate. I know that you have a lot to do.
Yeah, there's a few things to do.
I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there in case Josh is listening and in case he knows how to do this super easy. If there was a button up top that said 2 drops, then we could just take out those 2 and we could just see it as we go. And so people could look at the numbers now, and then they could also just say, drop the worst 2. Is that an easy thing to do?
No. I mean, we certainly could investigate that, but I think
I could do it in Excel. You just use the min function.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
you probably don't use software as advanced as Excel.
I don't know. It's funny because Excel is like my least favorite program in the world, and I try to avoid it at all costs. I'd rather write code than build a spreadsheet.
You just use the min function.
Yeah. No, I mean, like doing the math is very simple, obviously, but showing it and allowing people to click on things and that sort of stuff that's what takes time.
The clicking is the time killer.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right, because you guys could obviously take out the 2 bottom scores right now.
Yep.
And we could be going. And I wonder if that's the best thing to do. And we should have thought about this before we called.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly that wouldn't be that hard to do. It's just a matter of doing it. And then the only thing I'd be worried about there is that could maybe be a little bit misleading, because if somebody had only played, a couple of events and they won both of them, they're always going to be in first until somebody else comes. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at that. But I think the conversation maybe you wanted to have was last year. I think there was only one drop,
Yeah,
and the year before there was only one drop, I believe.
yeah,
And
that's right.
in the off season, we talked about this a lot, and we were trying to, come up with ways to maybe make it so that if somebody missed an event for some reason, or if they just couldn't play one for some reason, that they weren't totally, out of the running. Or if it was two events, in this case, now they can miss a couple of events and still have a shot to win, right?
Hey, Matt, we lost you a little bit there, Matt.
I think it's actually on your end. You were cutting out a bit before I came on. So
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, and you are here. So if you could just start over again. You said in the off season, we.
Oh yeah, I was just saying in the off season, you and I and Josh were discussing how many drops were appropriate, and we were kind of just talking about how not everybody can come to every single event, and it's not necessarily we want everybody to go to every event, but it's not necessarily feasible with everybody's schedules to align. And I know last year there were some B tiers and some things like that not everybody went to, which is not the case this year. But with having two drops instead of one, it just makes more sense to be able to kind of find out who really is the
as we
winner.
go. Whoops.
Oh, you're there now. I think that your internet's not so good at the library today.
The tiny little library letting me down. I'm sure it's on my end. I know it's not on your end. With a smile like that, your internet's working great. But to the point, I think that you were saying, we over the off season we looked at some numbers, and we did, if we had had one drop, two drop, three drop, maybe even four drops, and what would have happened and who would we want to reward. And I think
Yep.
we agreed that it's either two or three that the answer should be, and we wanted to be cautious, and so we increased the number from one to two, and we're thinking about going to three next year. So,
Right. Yeah. Yep. And that makes sense. I mean, you don't want to drop too many because then you could only play in three events or something and win the whole series, which is kind of against the point of having a series, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
The events you need to go to.
Yep. Exactly.
And so when we look at, for example, Paige Pierce and Sarah Hokum, like obviously Sarah has a first and a second, and Paige has 3 firsts and 1 second. If we drop their lowest, Paige is at 200 points and Sarah's at 185, and it's a lot closer than it seems.
Yeah, definitely. Did you say if they drop 2 right now? Oh, cut out again.
We did, but the answer was yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. If you drop 2, they're pretty much tied right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because while Paige had a tremendous start to the season, she by no means has this wrapped up. If Sarah ends up dropping her 4th and 6th, and those are in fact her worst events, then Paige better watch out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if she gets first or second the rest of the season, then it could be anybody's game.
Absolutely, and even Katrina Allen, she has a 4th, 5th, 6th, and a second. She drops that 5th and 6th, and she's right in the ball game as well with a couple of good wins, and she had a fantastic event. So the other interesting thing when I look at UDisc Live, you've got, especially I'm looking at the women's side right now, you've got brackets here, or you have ads here, I should say. You have the first 4 players and then an ad, and then the next 8 players and an ad. Can you tell us why those ads are there?
Yeah, so that was intentional. We kind of wanted people that are going to make certain cuts to be above the ad is kind of, I think, the terminology that we all were talking about before. So if you see those blue bars at the top, the top 4 get a bye to the semifinals. And then the next 5 through 12 are qualified to make it, to the Pro Tour finals in the first place.
Yeah. And on the women's side, there's only 3 rounds this season.
Yep.
So the 5 through 12 qualify, and then 1 through 4 actually get a bye and don't have to play that first round. So that's pretty significant.
Correct. And then if you look on the men's side, it's slightly different, but it's the top 8 that get a bye to the semifinals, and then an ad, and then 9 through 16 that get a bye to the quarterfinals. There's all the text is there, and at the top it kind of explains the whole thing and has some links to the point structure and the payouts for everything too, if anybody's curious to go dig a little bit.
Yeah, and the Tour Championship, as everybody knows, is a very unique format. And on the men's side, I think, as you said, it has 4 rounds, and the top, I think, 17 to 32
Yep.
have to play in the first round, with the top 8 advancing. So 8 of those 16 players advance, and they meet the players who finished 9th to 16th. So another group of 6. The single most exciting day in disc golf, when we have 4 foursomes. Win your card to advance. Don't worry about anybody else except what's on your card right there. And those are 4 tremendous battles.
Oh yeah, and I think that's been the most fun one to watch each year, at least for me, because it's kind of a different sort of thing. It's not really about getting the lowest score; it's about beating everybody you're playing against in that group. One of
my favorite quotes from last year, I believe it was Paul McBeth. It's possible it was Ricky Wysocki, but I think it was Paul McBeth. After the USDGC and then the Hall of Fame Classic, and you could just feel the fatigue in the players, because this was a brand new finish to the season. And Steve Hill asked Paul McBeth, I believe, "Are you going to be able to get up for the finals? You said you were kind of lackluster going into the semis." And he said, "Well, I'm playing Ricky directly. I won't have any problems getting up for this round." And it was really exciting, because it was just, here we go, 1 round, winner take all, done with it. Really.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what it's all about. We want to get all the best people playing against each other on the biggest stage, with the most cameras and the most people watching.
Right.
And see what they can do.
And actually, every round, scores don't carry over. So start out tied. So tour points matter. The other thing that's interesting with tour points is, for example, like Devin Owens is in 17th place and Dave Felberg is in 23rd. If they go into the first round and those guys tie, Devin Owens wins because of tour points. And I love that concept where you could get bumped out because you didn't have as many tour points. And watching these guys sitting on that bubble, recognizing, oh man, I'm behind him because he had beat me in tour points, is so much fun to watch.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And then if you look more at that page too, it shows you which events they're registered for. So that kind of gives you an idea too of maybe who has a slightly better chance of getting, more opportunities to score, I guess you could say, if they're registered for all the events versus just playing a couple here and there.
You're absolutely right. For example, I can see that Devin Owens is registered for everything, and Nate Perkins, who's just two slots behind him, is only registered for 3 more. So Devin's going to get some good drops, and Nate's going to get some drops of events that he's not going to.
Right. And it's also possible they just haven't registered for that event yet, and they will.
That's true. that is very possible.
Like, for example, Paul McBeth isn't registered for the MVP Open yet, which I would be pretty shocked if he didn't play in.
That's interesting, because I think he is registered. He just probably hasn't finished his registration.
Yeah, I haven't pulled for a couple days, so it's also possible that he did it in the last 5 days or so, and I haven't updated it.
Maybe. It's possible he gave me money and I didn't update it.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. But he has $3,100 more now than he did a week ago.
Yeah, that's true. He can probably afford to register for that one now.
Yeah, that was a really good finish on the San Francisco side. So I wanted to chat with you again. Another thing that I love as a developer, and you could argue I'm a developer of a tour. People come to us with interesting ideas all the time. And I want to know, with UDisc, has anybody ever come to you and said, hey, why don't you guys, have UDisc show me where the nearest ice cream shop is, or anything? What's the most ridiculous thing somebody's asked you to put into the UDisc app? What's the craziest idea you've heard?
Craziest idea, probably a Windows Phone app. But
funny.
In all seriousness, no. there's a lot of good ideas. People have great ideas all the time, and a lot of them are more just like, this would be really technically challenging to do, and it's not, what we feel like doing. I think maybe the funniest one. So and this ties in really well with the Pro Tour. So the Black Ink Discs commercial that is kind of the dating app spoof.
Absolutely.
So we got that idea once.
Oh, really?
And oh yeah, yeah. And I was kind of like, "Are you serious?" And I think that they were, but that kind of, I didn't really want to entertain the idea of an actual disc golf dating app. So we passed on that one.
That would be really. Now, can you chat inside UDisc?
Not yet. That's something that we hope to do eventually. But.
Okay, because it's fun to taunt people, and fronting on the mic is always a good thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, people ask for trash talking and things like that, and that's certainly something that we'd like to do eventually. But we're more focused on the the scoring aspect of the game right now.
As you should be. You gotta dial in one thing at a time. That single button though, that'd be interesting to press. Yes, I'm single. And
here are 9,000 other guys that are also. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't think that's a very feasible idea right now. But as we grow the women's side of the sport, then maybe it'll be more equal, and that could be a real thing.
I was going to say, would that incentivize women to use the app more or less?
Probably less.
Less, yeah. Where the sport is 9 to. Do you have user data on what the ratio of men to women is that use the app?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much the same as what you see for all of disc golf. I think it's usually like 91% male and 9% female or something like that.
Yep.
Is what you see.
The viewership numbers of the San Francisco Open, according to YouTube, were about 95-5.
Yeah. That's maybe a little bit more lopsided than I've seen. I think even like PDGA, if you look at, I think they have data on that, and it's something like 91% male or something like that. Yeah, and usually what we see is pretty aligned with that.
Anywhere between 5 and 10%. And hopefully we'll get those numbers up. Once we get them to 30, 40%, maybe then you can incorporate that little.
I don't think we want to go that way.
I think that is a very funny idea. And thank you for sharing that with us. I will say though, the Facebook, that was the button that made the Facebook take off.
I suppose. Yeah.
So, but
I don't know. I think the Windows Phone app is going to happen before that does.
Well, I will give Windows. I hope Windows does make that happen. It never hurts to have competition. But that app the phone just looks funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been around for a long time, and it's, I've never actually known somebody that has one, but every once in a while you'll get that email, and especially, so not to get on any kind of tangent, but there were a lot of Windows phones in Finland because Nokia was bought by Microsoft, and they switched to Windows phones. So for a while, there were a lot of Finnish people with Windows phones, and that I think has slowly gone away, hopefully.
I know one person that used a Windows phone, and they thought it was great.
I mean, they probably are, but
nobody uses them.
Yeah, exactly.
So
you know how good Skype is, and that's made by them too. So.
Oh, that hurts. Here we are in a Google Hangout.
Yep.
Nice and easy. When the library internet works, it's perfect. So, Matt, do you have anything else you want to share with us? Anything coming up with UDisc that you want to let people know about?
Sure. Since I'm here, we have a gigantic update coming out in about a week that we've been working on for a couple of years now. So you're finally going to be able to do the same kind of advanced scoring that you see on UDisc Live for your own personal rounds. Finally.
Fantastic. Is that for
you'll be able to track
pro users only?
Well, it'll align with the regular pro limits. So like most everything we do is free, but if you want to keep an unlimited number of scorecards, then you need to be a pro user.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, so you'll be able to do the circle 1 putting and circle 2 putting and fairway hits. In fact, we renamed it to driving. It'll be a little bit different than how UDisc Live works, more geared towards practicing versus competition. But it'll be very similar, and you'll be able to track all the stats that you see on UDisc Live. And I think that it's really going to change how people practice and play, because it really allows you to analyze your game quite a bit more. And we've also rewritten just about everything with the app. It's been a huge effort and taken us quite a while, but the plan is next week. So stay tuned for some big updates.
So if you're planning next week, you've got this thing dialed in.
Yeah, it's pretty much done. We're working on some kind of not last minute, but it's kind of buttoning things up. Everything is solid, and we're adding some things like being able to share your scorecards really easily in a nicely formatted graphic and things like that, so that you can have all these.
Share your scorecard to Facebook or Instagram.
Yep, we're working on stuff like that, and all the core stuff is totally done, and we've been beta testing it since what was it? Probably March. I think we started the beta, probably in the middle of March, end of March. So it's been going for a couple of months now with a few hundred people.
You could argue you've been beta testing it since 2016.
Well, sort of, but this is a completely different code base and everything, totally rewritten. And yeah.
Well, that is very exciting news. I assume you've told that other places, but I'm happy to help the 14 people that are listening here can find out as well.
There's 35 people listening.
Well, that's a start. Well, thank you very much, Matt. Congratulations on how far you've come on quitting a good paying job and making it in disc golf. And
well, essentially making it. I mean, I'm still not to where I was before when I had my old job, but hopefully someday.
It's kind of ironic that we froze up right when you were saying that. What was that last sentence again?
Oh, I was just saying, making a living on disc golf is certainly hard, and it's nowhere near what it was with a real job, but this is way more fun. So
yeah, I don't miss those golden handcuffs at all.
Right. It's much more liberating to, do not necessarily what you want to do, but to be able to kind of choose the direction that you're going.
Right. 100% agree. And we took similar jumps, and I can't imagine looking back.
Exactly. I hope I never have to.
So thank you, Matt. And with that, I'm going to review the men's side of the San Francisco Open, and then maybe talk a little bit about numbers. And if we get Jeff Spring, that'll be an extra bonus. So thank you very much, sir.
I'm going to go eat dinner.
Thank you, sir. Enjoy. So a huge thanks to Matt. UDisc for yourself and analyze your own game and make yourself, figure out, I got to work on circle 1 putts, circle 2 putts. And most of that stuff you probably know, but when you look at the numbers, it helps you focus even more. So huge shout out to Matt and Josh and everything they're doing over there. And if you don't have the UDisc app already, sign up for it today. And then once you've done your 10 rounds, get the pro side and keep on going. So let's do a quick check to see if that was Jeff. Okay, Jeff says he is getting ready to join in. So before he does, I want to do some quick reviews on the men's side of the game. And a huge shout out to Paul McBeth, who got his first Pro Tour victory of the season. And he is now just 8 points behind Ricky Wysocki in the tour points, in tour points. Let me see if I've got that. I do have that pulled up. So when I look at this, Ricky they're both dropping a 13th right now. So that probably will get dropped. And then the other one, Paul will be dropping a 5th and Ricky's dropping a 4th. So right now Ricky has the lead and has a small advantage by that 4th versus that 5th after they dropped their 13th. So Ricky at 288, Paul at 280, Eagle McMahon at 227, and Garrett Gerthy at 220. What a surprise Garrett is. Oh, and Garrett actually has a 35th place that he's going to be dropping. So once we do these drops, these numbers are going to tighten up quite a bit. I think after Utah, I'm going to ask Matt, let's go ahead and set those 2 drops, and we'll gray those boxes out. And then as we progress, we'll gray out different boxes. But Utah will be halfway, and it seems like that's a good point for us to start doing those drops and show people how tight this really is. So, okay, Jeff keeps getting a crash report. I don't know what that means. Ask him to try a laptop if he's not. Okay. So then the other thing that I wanted to chat about was the statistics on the guys' side. And it's interesting because on the men's side, I should say on the women's side, it was Circle 1 in regulation and OB strokes. And on the men's side, I think maybe because the tournament was so close, when we look at Circle 1 in regulation, Eagle McMahon actually led that category. But then we look at Circle 1 putting, and Eagle McMahon actually was under 80% in Circle 1 putting, which is a very low number. I'm going to go scroll down and just see. I actually don't see anybody in the top 30. Wow, you have to go down to 38th place before anybody has less than 80% Circle 1 putting. So that's where Eagle McMahon lost a lot of strokes. His OB rate was in line. His Circle 2 putting was actually very good. And Circle 1 and reg, Circle 2 and reg were actually better than anybody in the top 10. But that Circle 1 putting destroyed him. And then we look at Ricky Wysocki, and he was neck and neck with Paul in almost every category, just a smidge behind. In Circle 1 in regulation, it was 46 to 43. Circle 2 in regulation, 67 to 63. Circle 1 putting was 94 to 92. So just a smidge behind in every category. He did beat Paul McBeth in Circle 2 putting, but probably not enough Circle 2 putts to make it to make up that ground. Even though it was just little smidges here and there, when you lose by just a few strokes, just a couple of smidges is all it takes. And what was the last thing that I was going to do? Oh, I wanted to talk about the viewership of the San Francisco Open. As we all know, this was the first time we did same-day, shot-by-shot FPO coverage. Huge shout-out to Madison and her co-hosts. We had Lisa Fakis. We had Christina, I want to say Tinicum. And then Kona Panis helped her with the commentary. Huge shout out! They all did a fantastic job, and the audience retention rate for that first hour on day 2 and 3 was higher than we've ever seen. Once people tuned in and watched that, they kept watching. It was an engaging performance. So huge shout out to Terry Miller. He edited all of that. Huge shout out to Chad Inman, who walked 2 rounds each day, first with the ladies, then with the men. And then huge shout out to Madison and her co-hosts for giving us the commentary on that. It was all in all a phenomenal effort. And then going into that, during the Circle Zero show, we actually saw a small bump in viewership, but our audience retention rate was not quite as high. Live broadcast, you're waiting for the guys to shoot. Versus edited, the whole thing's edited down to a 50-minute, maybe 1 hour show, and it's just constant action.
The library will be closing.
So, I have no idea where I was. Okay, Jeff is grabbing a laptop, so we'll see if Jeff can get in here. I was doing the audience retention rates. So, and then the other interesting thing, once the men's coverage started, we had good retention, and the average watch time for day 2 was 36 minutes. And the average watch time for day 3 was over 40 minutes. In the US, it was actually 42 minutes. So the watch time was very, very good. And the audience retention, especially on the women's side, was phenomenal. Almost nobody tuned out once they started watching. Once you watched about 4 or 5 minutes of the women's side, you were hooked. It was a great show, all in all, very well done. So the one caveat I would say, the number of viewers that we had, concurrent viewers, on the first day was relatively low. I think we peaked out around 1,700. And then we got up to about 2,500 on day 2 and 3,400 on day 3. So a really nice steady climb. But that first day, and we might have lost a lot of people because we did the women, and then as a separate stream, a separate broadcast, we did the men. So it was two distinct broadcasts. And we noticed we had about 1,000 people watching, and then we asked them all to go out and then come back into a different broadcast. And the second day we realized that's not the way to engage people, was asking them to leave and come back in. So we decided to just keep going with that one broadcast. And we'll have to figure out some way to split those out so that we can have 2 separate broadcasts after the event. But during the event, I like the idea of leaving them on with one broadcast. Let's see. Grabbing the laptop, friend of a friend, so it might work out shortly. So hopefully we'll get Jeff Spring here. But if not, I think it's been a fantastic show, and we'll wrap it up. But we'll give Jeff a few minutes. And while we're doing this, I'm actually going to go. I normally don't do this, but I'm going to go to the live stream, and I'm going to look at the comments and see if you guys have made any comments that we want to talk about. Let's see if we can pull this up. So if you want to make some comments, this would be a good time to do it, and I can answer questions directly. Why is Steve always in a library? With the exception of tonight, the library offers very good internet signal. The internet at the house is not anywhere near as good as at the library. The libraries are a great resource. If you ever have a meeting that you're doing with a bunch of people, you can get these little rooms. They also have tons of books. Audrey's laughing at me because she loves books. Paul's not registered for Idlewild Open. I live pretty close, so kind of bummed what Ricky is, so it'll be okay-ish. I think Paul will be at the Idlewild Open. I also think he will be at MVP. Matt, I'm kind of glad it wasn't your connection. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on here. What about Central Coast doing the final round? I think that was a bad move viewership-wise. So, Carver, I will say that Central Coast and Jomez came out to the Memorial. They came out to San Francisco Open, and they're coming out to Utah, both of them. So what they did was these are 3-round events. So they wanted to split up who got the final round. And I'm confident, I think Jomez got the final round at Memorial. Central Coast said, we really want the final round at San Francisco because this is kind of our home, especially, or for Corey it is at least. And then I would bet that at Utah it'll be Jomez on the final day, but I'm not actually sure. They might be flipping a coin. And regarding views, I think that there are more subscribers to Jomez, but I think that Central Coast does a phenomenal job, and I would expect just as many people will tune in to watch that coverage on Central Coast. So I will respectfully disagree with you on there. Why not have FPO and MPO main cards closer to each other so the ladies have a larger gallery? Jeremy, that's a really interesting question. What we've found when the women go off right before or a few cards before the men, the gallery actually goes to the men, and there's not nearly as many people watching the women. We've had much better success getting galleries when the women go earlier in the day, and then people will watch, and people will watch the women, then they'll go eat lunch, and then people watch the men. They make a day of it. So that's the reason for that. Additionally, what we've been doing up until this event, we've been splicing in the coverage in the live, splicing in the women's coverage into the live coverage. And now we're doing same day shot by shot edited coverage right before the live coverage. So those are the similar reasons we're doing this, so that more people will watch, not so that fewer people will watch. Thank you, Carver G. Indeed, they are sharing the love. Jomez does do a very good job. I'm not going to say that one is superior over the other. Well, it's interesting, Larry. sometimes conversations, and Larry says the conversation isn't allowed to run its course when we're limited to an hour. And there's some truth to that, but there's also some truth to let's hurry up and get to the point because we're limited to an hour. When I worked at Vibram, I had a 40-minute commute. And if I wanted to listen to Smashbox, it would take me 2 days of driving to do so. And I'd rather give people a smaller segment that's more digestible. So I'd rather get to the point relatively quickly. Charlie Cavalier, Steve, what do you think is the ideal amount of players for a Pro Tour event, assuming payout isn't affected via more sponsors or raised entry fees? That's a great question, Charlie Cav. And in my opinion, the ideal number is 144 MPO players. And if we can get there, 144 FPO players. But realistically, there's not enough room for that. I think we'd be looking at, once we get FPO up, maybe 108 on both sides. But right now, I'd like to see 144 MPO, and I'd like to see 36 FPO. And of those MPO players, I'd like to see 72 Touring Pro players. We haven't gotten there yet as getting the numbers up. But I'd like to see 72 Touring Pro players, and I'd like to see 72 regional guys who want to make a run. And once we get to the point where that's kind of consistently happening, we can actually compare regions and say this region did better against the pros than this region. So these are all kind of little extra thoughts that I have as to how it would be great if we got to this point. So William Laney, due to internet reasons, is that the lack of live coverage? Well, we have live coverage for every event. William, if you could clarify that, there's a couple of things you might mean. Number one, live coverage for the women. The reason we don't have live coverage of the women is because our costs would nearly double. The only thing we'd be saving is travel, but everything else would double in cost. And frankly, we don't have the advertising to make that happen. We're scraping and making things work as it is, so we don't have the finances to do 2 live streams. The other thing you might mean is, am I frozen? It's hard to tell. That looks frozen.
Yeah, that's frozen.
I'm going to keep talking just in case. So the other thing you might mean is, why don't you have more cards being covered live? So a second MPO card or a third MPO card. And the reason for that is quite simply the same idea. Every card you add. Okay, thanks, Seth. So every card that you add, you're adding cost and you're adding complication in the back end. So Johnny's doing the producing. He's looking at multiple cameras coming in. He's not able to save data from another camera yet. And so unless that camera unless they happen to be making a putt while the other cameras, while the lead card isn't doing anything and we're not running an ad, that camera would almost never be used. So that's the reason for not having that extra expense because we wouldn't get enough value from that expense. So yeah. We're hoping that the software increases its capabilities, and then we could hire someone to sit next to Johnny. He could clip out MPO2, good shots, and then we could say previously on hole 7, just like the PGA does. But until the software improves, we're not able to do that. During the live coverage, when the live on-course audio and the commentary audio were playing at the same time, it was a little overwhelming, a lot of feedback. Maybe EQ it differently next time. David, that's a good suggestion. I will say that exact thing to Johnny, and we will see how he responds to that. And it would be pretty easy, I think, to turn the volume down on the on-course mic just a skosh to make that not quite as bothersome. And you mentioned that on Smashbox, so they probably know it already. Any chance of showing players first throw with walkout music they choose heard and clip? I love that concept. the GBO does that idea, but no other events do that right now.
I just want to give you your cards so
Oh.
that while I'm going around closing doors and stuff, you'd be just reading it.
Thank you very much. All right, we are free to check out anytime. Wait, that's not my card. Audrey, would you go give her that?
Yeah!
That just got really funny. So, Michael, the GBO does the music for the players. Most events don't do that. That's something really special that the GBO does. So
I found Dad's bald face.
there we go. I'm good now. I could see an investment with long-range Wi-Fi repeaters set up at all of the tourneys, set them up, then take them to the next tourney. I agree with that entirely. We actually did try that at the Players' Cup in 2010. Now, granted, the infrastructure's probably improved quite a bit since then, but the only real issue with that is, number one, you need Wi-Fi at the course. At SFO, we did not have that at all. And number two, you need another person that knows exactly how to set that up on every course. So they'd have to show up a few days before the event, set it up, test it, and then after the event, break it all down, pack it up, and put it in the trailer. That's not a person that we have right now. So there's, it's at least a $20,000 expense plus the I just saw you walk on the screen. So that was funny. It's at least a $20,000 expense plus the cost of all the Wi-Fi repeaters. So, yes. Oh, Larry Puckett, it was an NT that didn't have live coverage and it was a bad signal. That's true. We make sure to have, well, we try to make sure to have good signal everywhere we go. Waco and Maple Hill are the notable exceptions, where Maple in the back and Waco in the woods in some places doesn't quite have great signal. Is Patrick still working with you? How's the truck running? Patrick is running, the truck is running great. Patrick's running great. And he is doing phenomenally. And if you're going to be at Beaver State, Patrick is going to be there with the MPH range. Stop by, say hello, buy some Pro Tour merchandise, and see how fast you can throw and see if you can win a basket or a bag. You have an opportunity to do the speed range and win prizes. So go, go, go. And I think that's it. I think I caught up to all the questions. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to get Jeff Spring on here. We will try to get him on next week and do some catch up with Jeff about Pro Worlds, about liaisoning with the PDGA, and any other questions that come up. But I'm actually kind of glad the way this worked out, because it was fun getting into that other side and reading those questions and answering them with y'all. So you guys have a great night, and we look forward to talking to you next time on Pro Tour Talk.
Wait.